Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me for another card making tutorial. Today I am featuring a card created with a stamp set from Concord and Ninth called Songbird. Together with some of my friends, we have created a blog hop and we are featuring all of the projects with one company, and that's Concord and Ninth. Be sure to visit my blog at jennyhalldesign.com to get the free PDF tutorial for this project. So here's a look at the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp with Memento Tuxedo Black, and I will be using Hero Art's Dove White cardstock. If you have not yet tried this cardstock, it's really nice for coloring Copics and for ink blending, card bases, you name it. This is one of my new favorite cardstock. So I'm using the MISTI stamping positioner to put all of these images on one paper. This is a look at the whole list of Copic markers that I'll be coloring with, and they will be listed on the screen as we progress through the coloring. I have sped the coloring up because that's what takes the longest time on this project. But this is also what is some of the most requested things in my videos, is that I do show the coloring so that you can get more ideas to put into your crafting projects. I'm keeping the coloring very simple. I like to create with 3 different colors for one particular object. And the way that I can describe that as, let's take for example this brown branch. I'm using a light color, a medium color, and a darker color. First I add the light color and saturate the image as I'm doing here with the bird. Then I'll go back in with either the medium or the darker shade. Usually I go with the medium shade. And I'll create some shadows and contours on that particular item that I'm coloring. You can see here that I'm putting some different dark areas around where the stamped image already tells me that there's going to be a contour. That's what makes it so easy coloring, is to be able to use what's already on the stamp to be able to see if that's something that maybe a natural shadow would fall or a contour. So I'm using that darker of the browns to go in and just add more dark color. And then here's that light color again, and I'm using it to blend those colors together. What this does is that it brings those colors out into the rest of the image. Imagine that the paper is like a swimming pool, and all of these alcohol inks are sitting in the fibers of the paper like a swimming pool, and once you mix them together, then they blend really easily. Copic markers can be a little bit intimidating, but if you take your time and use lots of practice, then you can build up your confidence over time. This is a W3 marker, which is a warm gray marker. It's not a very dark shade, but it's dark enough to where it will add some shadows to this light image of the bird. And then I'll use the chisel end. That's the opposite end from the long one. This one is the chisel end of that same light colored Copic marker, and it's going to help me to get a good coverage to add that lighter color back and blend everything in. Now you'll notice on the bird there are a couple of areas that I only colored with the light color, and that is something that is going to help there be a natural looking highlight to the project. Moving on to coloring the different leaves, I'm starting off with a very light yellow because I want the greenery in this project to feel very light and not be the main focus of the project. I want the bird to be the main focus. So I'm using that progression of greens just like I did the browns, the reds, and the pink browns, and following that same rule of adding the darker color into the areas that the stamp already tells me is going to be darker, then it's so simple to add the coloring. This may be a little bit too simple, but for me, it's good enough. So I'm using some of these really nice light and airy greens and building up color. And then I'm going to use a W6, which is a darker gray than the one that I used before. And that's going to push those shadows right down into the leaves. I'll be doing fussy cutting to crop my images today. I'm not sure if there's coordinating dies. I didn't find any, but fussy cutting is something I never mind doing. But one thing that I do like to do whenever I have a stamped image that has a black outline is I take a long black tipped marker and I will go along that cut edge, because when I color on thick paper, oftentimes it'll be like a white edge to it, and that distracts from the images. So here is a die set from Honeybee Stamps that I picked up at scrapbook.com, and these are double stitch dies, and you can see how they snip apart very easily. And I noticed after I die cut the circle that there was some kind of little smudges on the paper, so I had a oval white eraser that I just used to get those smudges off, and they came away very easily. Now here's a trio of colors that I found that are in my distressed oxides that match this project. And what I want to create is a background that does not hold solid color. And I also don't want it to be a gradient where it goes from one color down into another color. I want this to look mottled, kind of like if you were to look at a bird that's sitting in a tree and has a blurred background. It's not going to be all one color, but it's going to be a soft collection of different shades of colors that are going to move in and out of focus. I know that's a big concept to try to put into a piece of art, but I really felt this is what I wanted the background to look like. So I'm doing the ink blending with a makeup blending brush, and I'm going to add those three colors, and I don't want it to look really smooth. I want that blotchiness to show up. But I don't want the entire circle on my project. I'd like to keep the integrity of a lot of white space. So I chose to just crop off the right hand side of that circle, and that way I can add it down to the card base, and it'll still hold a lot of interest, but it won't take the entire design over. So I'm going to place this circle, and I did allow it time to dry, back in the MISTI, and I'm using the MISTI Creative Corner to hold my paper straight. I really like these corner pieces. And then I'm going to use liquid glue to hold this die cut down to the card base. And I'm just kind of moving it around a little bit. That's what I like about liquid glue, is that I have a little bit of time to make sure things end up straight. Here is some double-sided foam tape that I'm adding to the back of all of the images except the berries. The berries I'm just going to glue directly down to the card base. And you can see this is how I decided that I wanted to feature the bird. I snipped off what would hang off of the top and the right hand side of the branch, but I decided to keep that part down off of the bottom and have the image progress down to the left bottom corner of the project. And I did this for the design aesthetic, to make sure that I was covering enough points in my design to be able to make it look pleasing. And here's another one of those little berry clusters, and I wasn't sure where to place it, but this seemed to be a good area where if I add the berries on top of the leaf, but they're hanging off down onto the card base, and it looks like there's two layers of berries. One is raised and one is not raised. So I like how that came out. It just kind of ended up, it wasn't planned. So little happy accidents like that are something that's always welcome. I'm using some Nuvo drops to add a little bit of shimmer and glimmer, and it worked out just fine. Thank you so much for joining me today, and don't forget to go to my blog and get the free PDF for this project, and I'll see you again next time.
Thanks for watching the video. Have a good day!